Hello, this is Jamie Christ. I'm here with Ian Nix. We are today going to have an extremely topical version of the CHRISTWVRKS podcast. We are right in the depths of the Black Lives Matter movement with rioting and protests all over America. So, Ian, can you tell me what the fuck is going on?
Well, that's pretty simple. Cops are pieces of shit. I mean, that's pretty much a universal there. I think we can all agree. Yeah, I mean, a man named George Floyd was killed by a Minneapolis police officer. 4 of them, really. There's a video of him kneeling on his neck for 9 minutes as he cried out for his mother. I mean, just disturbing shit, man. And this shit's been going on for forever, since the very beginning, and once again, people are fucking sick of it, and expressing their distaste for it, so to speak, for the injustice. Yeah.
So, for anyone that's not so up to date on American politics, actually the news that's been happening in America. So the riots, or at least there was protests. I think
It's mostly peaceful protests. That's the vast majority. I mean, there's rioting, and I mean that's all being started by the cops. The cops are
so that's the first thing I wanted to
escalating.
Get that so the first thing that I saw was that video of the guy wearing the gas mask and had the umbrella. Did you see that one?
Yeah.
Yeah. So then he basically, kind of he walks into what looks like just like a peaceful protest gathering, wearing a fucking gas mask, and he's holding an umbrella, and just walks up calmly to some hardware shop, and just starts smashing the windows, but almost like he's trying to do it with he's smashing the windows, but trying to do it without causing any disturbance, if you know what I mean.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, because you kind of feel like if someone was going to do something like that, they'd be like, let's fucking fuck this shit up, and then, and try and get people riled up to do it with it. But he literally is just like bang, 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 and then very quickly starts trying to, make his exit, and then gets followed and confronted, and kind of basically refuses to engage with the people confronting him and just walks away.
It's an interesting tactic. I don't really understand it myself.
What you can see of the guy's face in the gas mask, and then a policeman, and it looks pretty much like it's the same guy, right?
Yeah.
Do you know any more information about that? Because that's pretty much the extent to which I know about that.
Well, as far as that goes, I mean, apparently the guy's own wife was freaking out and saying it was him and shit. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going around. I mean, I'm seeing other things, videos of cops placing bricks in areas. Mm-hmm. I've seen videos of cops walking down the street smashing car windows.
Really?
It's odd. It's an odd tactic. I don't really understand it. I mean, it must be political. Because, if they facilitated a peaceful response, then there would have been mostly a peaceful response, not nice or necessarily cooperative. I mean, I'm sure there have been plenty of civil disobedience, but as far as the violence is gone, that is completely orchestrated by the police, or rather, provoked by the police. It must be a political move, because it seems like that would cause more problems for them.
I was going to say, I always feel that we talked about this before, that the notion of peaceful protest is something that's kind of given to you by the man. The man would rather that we just go out, wave our signs around, Then they go, yeah, okay, you
Right,
guys done now? Right, okay,
so
fuck
why
off.
is the man provoking
Yeah,
violence then,
yeah.
if that's what the man wants?
Mm.
I think they.
Yeah. So I mean, well, I think it's made quite clear by Trump then saying he wants to make Antifa a terrorist organization. That makes the motives quite clear, because then if you double that with them trying to make the violence as bad as possible, and they have, then Antifa to blame it on, then you can silence that voice, using the, everyone else that's not involved in Antifa, and they think it's as bad as possible, and then, then they feel that it's justified to call it a terrorist organization.
Yeah. I mean, it's a war, essentially.
Yeah, that's
they're trying to silence and demean and destroy their enemies. On one side you have essentially what has coalesced around Trump, something you could probably fairly call Christian nationalism. That is, but a very American brand of it specifically. And then on the other side is basically everyone else. And the thing about these people,
white Christian nationalism, American nationalism, in the same way that the Nazis were fascist, but they were Nazi fascists. They're very their own version of it, and the American fascism is kind of very particularly American in that it's they have their idea of who an American is, and their idea of what liberty is, and it's all about those two things.
Right, exactly. It's like Trump's little photo op. I mean, one of the main tenets of this sort of Christian right nationalist thing is obeying authority, because they believe that all authority is appointed by God, unless it's like Barack Obama or someone who's like not white. Then that was the devil tricking people or something. They have excuses for everything. They have a line that they follow that they never deviate from. That's why you can't use any sort of reason or logic, or you can't even emotionally appeal to them. You can't say, hey, like, did you see this video of this man slowly dying? Like, does this not affect you emotionally in any way? And it doesn't, because they've built a world around themselves that shields them. And it would be one thing if they were just merely just callous observers, but they aren't.
Yeah,
they've built that world around themselves, and they also go out and attack. They're enemy insurgents is what they are.
Yeah, because they're the ones that are armed, and the ones that their violence is even the people who are kind of purposefully committing violence in the Black Lives Matter movement, they would admit that their violence is quite chaotic, whereas the people committing violence against those protesters very purposefully think that their violence is justified by not only the government and the authority, but also God then.
Right. And God has appointed the authority, so therefore, the state authority has full permission by God to do anything it wants. That's why Trump was his base is able to justify, tear gassing protesters and lying about it, just so he can have a photo op outside of a church holding a Bible. No matter how insincere that picture obviously looks, they don't care. They need the symbolism.
Oh, yeah.
They don't care about the context around it whatsoever. It's just the symbol itself is all they need to justify.
Yeah, this iconography.
Right.
In its modern form.
Yeah, and they have a lot of cops on their side doing their dirty work, and it's not just white cops. It's everybody. It's a system. Racism is a part of it, but I mean, racism is slowly becoming not so much a part of it. I mean, I see 20 years in the future, the fascist right's going to be full of black folks, and it's going to be full of brown and Asian and gay and trans people. It's going to be purely class based.
Is that not progress then, at least?
No, it's worse actually.
Why would you say that? Like, so when you say it, why if you foresee that, why do you see it going that way?
Just because the right is going to run out of people to appeal to, so they're going to start really. I mean, they're going to start making it more about class, which I think that that question should be more in the forefront. But for them, it's going to be like, the rich are rich because God made them rich. They deserve to be in charge.
People in the upper class.
Right.
Yeah. But that means, ultimately that's like a losing battle for them, because the fewer people there are, to support you, then the more you're fucked. If you only make it about being elite, there's only so few elite people, and that's why the far right has always had to try and mobilize the working class in their favor.
Yeah, they definitely try. They've mostly used race and like race antagonisms. That's what's worked, and it still works now, but it works way less. But again, I mean, the class question is all you really need, because there are black cops that are more brutal than white cops, more bigger bullies, worse enemies of the people than their white counterparts.
Yeah.
They've got that line from NWA, black police showing out for the white cop. I mean, that's real shit.
Yeah.
And that's what's fucked up. And if you don't, sorry.
Yeah, man, just cut it there.
Oh yeah, no, I had a call.
Right.
They're calling again. Hey, can we pause this for a second? I got this. I gotta take this.
Right. Yeah. So what were we talking about?
How fascism is trying to.
Oh yeah.
It will eventually become like not racist.
Okay. Right. Yeah. Okay.
Which will make it even more dangerous.
Yeah. So my point on that was that fascism's kind of only, the way that I see it, the only way it can exist is by mobilizing the working class, basically against themselves, because otherwise there's so few of them in like the elite that it's like you can never sway democracy into fascism that way. So how do you see them being able to do that?
I don't see them being able to. I just see them trying to.
Okay.
And the act will, be, devastating, I guess, in some sense. Or they'll come up with something, some sort of new, neoliberal version of fascism that will just, like co-opt every movement, put it all like into the state, but the hierarchies all remain the same.
Yeah. So
that kind of thing.
Yeah, so it'll be like an inclusive fascism kind of thing.
Yeah, that's pretty much what America is.
Yeah.
Honestly, yeah. It's not a real democracy, like not at this point. Like it's very much a, corporate state, essentially. Like some democratic forms that are fighting to stay alive, but it's pretty much fascism, like a liberal fascism.
So one thing I was talking about with some of my friends earlier was, that this is being called the biggest civil rights movement like ever, like even more so than the original civil rights movement. But because my American history isn't so great, so what happened last time was there were 6 days of continuous rioting, and then at the end of that, the Civil Rights Bill was passed, right? And that was, like basically what people wanted. But was that bill something that was set out before, and was like, this is were people saying this is what we want passed? Because right now, my concern with what's going on is that there's not a clear goal. Because just to say we need to end police brutality, it's very easy for a politician to go, yes, we're definitely going to put in all of these measures and stuff to end police brutality. We're definitely going to do that. But then nothing happens, or even if it does, it doesn't mean it's going to end police brutality. And it's
Right.
like, yeah.
Well, that's what the Civil Rights Bill did. It didn't end police brutality. Mm-hmm. I mean, that was a lot of years, a lot of struggle. I mean, all building up to that. I mean, there were certain segments of the old civil rights movement that were, pushing for bills to be passed through, through Congress and the Senate and everything, to alleviate what the Black community was facing at the time. But that was just one aspect. I mean, there was a lot of them were wanting full revolution, full on overthrow of the current system, or no liberal reforms, none of that. But with the death of Martin Luther King, I mean, that's pretty much what we got. That was this is the best that you're going to get, civil rights and voting rights acts and shit. And people, a lot of people accepted it. Mainstream America was like, well, this is a step in the right direction, and we'll just keep making more progress, but that didn't happen. Yeah. In fact, voting rights, Civil Rights Act, that shit's been walked back. It's basically non-existent now. Gerrymandering is a thing. It's pretty much, they can draw up congressional maps however they want, and then draw up their own precincts, their own voting districts, to make it to where it splits a single community may be able to elect Democrats, but if Republicans are in charge of drawing up the electoral maps, they can just split the community and they won't be able to elect a Democrat, and a Republican may slip through with a very slight majority or something like that. They're doing starting means testing again. You have to have an ID to vote, or you can't vote if you're a felon, or this or that. I mean, all kinds of shit. I mean, it's just it's become harder to vote, and the Voting Rights Act was supposed to make it easier, but it's harder now. So it's pretty much got walked back. And then I mean, the end of segregation, Civil Rights Act, all that's great, but I mean, white people have, retreated behind gated communities and private schools and all kinds of shit like that. I mean, there are plenty of neighborhoods, plenty of communities in this country that still remain segregated, all but by name.
I heard someone told me once that there's still high schools in the South. I mean, this is 10 years ago. I got told this now, but there's high schools in the South that still have black and white proms. They have separate proms. Yeah.
Yep. That's true.
But it's not even a problem, because apparently both sides want it that way, but to me, that just the notion that can be allowed, regardless of whether that's what people want, is just because it's obviously nurturing the wrong attitude on both sides.
Right.
It's so fucked up. It's just so.
That's why. Liberalism paves the way to fascism. Separate but equal. All this is just how liberalism makes the oppressive, crushing, capitalist order, makes it a little more bearable for the regular people. And if that takes, separating races and shit, then they'll do that too. Like, it's all about upholding the order. Liberalism isn't for the people, It's just it's just to keep the people from destroying the oppressive system that they're under. Like, in order to fix that, you need a whole nother system. A system that not only says, no, we're not going to have fucking racial segregation. Y'all going to come together and you're going to fucking like it. Because we're going to educate, we're going to educate your children better than you ever could. Better than your fucking shitty right-wing state was ever going to allow. We have to fix people, essentially. We have to let a couple of generations of much more highly educated masses, not just middle class kids who can afford to go to college or whoever, like everybody,
Yeah. Because then they feel separate, right? They have that feeling.
And that's the worst kind of separation,
Yeah.
You're gonna have
feel like they're better, that they're above.
Right.
When you're educated and other people aren't, then it makes you feel like you're better than other people. But if everyone was properly educated, that wouldn't be a dividing factor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very true. And they are caring more. It is, again, a class thing. Class determines your level of education generally. But it seems people in the poorest, least educated parts of this country are still facing, lots of racial discrimination and racial separation. Except for the middle class and rich folks among them. They get to escape it. And nothing changes. They don't, it's just there has to be a system that actually gives a fuck about education and gives a fuck about the people. A system that's run by the people. That will fix these problems. I'll ultimately fix these problems. I mean, that's one of my problems with the protests currently going on. There is definitely a side of it that's saying, hey, we need to focus on a little more on the system itself, because if you're upset about looting and property damage and the destruction of businesses, small businesses specifically, you need to understand where this comes from. Like, rioting and looting is it's a reaction. It's not a part of any sort of. It's not necessarily a tactic. It's not a political tactic, really. It is for the cops and stuff, because they can use that against their political enemies. But it's not a tactic. It's a reaction. It's an explosion of people who feel like they haven't been heard for so long.
Yeah. So what would you say is the best potential end goal for what's going on now?
If it can be co-opted into something that's
I'm just saying that's what my concern of it is as well, is that there's not a clearly defined.
It won't go anywhere. It will not go anywhere or lead to anything unless, the cops may get punished in some way. There might be a couple bills passed. Like, I don't know. I don't know if there's a lot of hopes of passing anything federally at this time, but I'm sure there'll be plenty of local stuff. Like taking their budgets away, or at the very least, like in Minneapolis, they're putting, they want to put more into education and not give cops this big budget increase that they're about to give them, like stuff like that. Ultimately, it's not going to do anything. It's just going to make police more bitter and more willing.
I was going to say that doesn't really seem to actually be. That's like a kind of slap on the wrist for the guys running the department, because it makes their life more difficult. But it's just going to. It doesn't help anything at all.
No.
They're just going to be more pissed off cops, which means there's going to be more police brutality.
Yeah. The system has to change. The system does not have the capabilities to reform itself. And of course, the only thing to combat that is if another system is created to rival it and eventually take it over. So that could look something like, the people could create an actual like people's police force within their own communities and basically say, we're handling stuff here. This is a no-go zone for all city and county police. This is only for this community, and then have a network, and eventually just make the current police system obsolete. Just get rid of them, push them out. Because I'm not going to say we don't need a police force. We do currently within the world we live in, but they're not. They're clearly making society worse, and they're a problem. I'll go as far to say is they're a bunch of fucking animals that need to be put down. But
then would it not be the same people that apply to be a policeman
no.
would apply? No.
I mean, you can see those motherfuckers from a mile away. You know what they are. You know what they're in it for. This would be something very centralized. So, imagine you're in a dispute that even requires policing. When I say policing, it's like not someone walking around with a gun. Like there has to be other versions of police. Like the police can't go if someone's having a mental health crisis. Like the guy with the gun shouldn't be the one on the scene.
Yeah,
there needs to be a different, and we don't have that. That's not that we don't have an apparatus for that, so that has to be built, and they're not going to make one either. Yeah. So I mean, I would feel better if it was my neighbor or my friend, like someone I know or someone I grew up with is like coming around to like keep things good, make us feel safe.
A system to do that. If you're having a mental health crisis and you have a neighbor or a friend, then they would do that to try and come help anyway, right? But in reality, normally it's like the neighbors or whatever that is calling the police on
exactly,
to these situations. So
yeah, it's we love the idea of going to friends and neighbors, community members, and coming together and kumbaya and all that shit and having each other's backs. We love that idea. It's a great idea, and that's how it should be. But in order to facilitate that, we need some sort of organization, some sort of some sort of principled organization that has those ideas at its core, and is able to work for them and fight for them if necessary.
But I mean, but then they would argue, the current police would be like, hey, we do have that. That's what protect and serve is supposed to be. That's our ideology.
Well, at that point, you had to say, well, I don't give a fuck what you say, what you think. You better stay the fuck out of my neighborhood or you will be treated like an enemy combatant. Like cops need to be treated as enemies. They need to be treated as foreign soldiers on domestic soil. That's what I think at this point. They're a bunch of fucking animals. They don't deserve to breathe the same air as a normal human being. They are corrupted beyond redemption. So we have to not only build something for our communities, something that helps our people and creates a better, safer, more egalitarian society, but we have to combat them as well and keep them the fuck out because they're going to try to fuck it over.
Yeah, I mean, I would argue that what the problem with the police and the establishment at the moment is the impunity that they basically know that they have, right? If they were afraid of facing the consequences of their actions, even if we can basically assume that most of them are fucking assholes and most of them are on a power trip and blah blah blah. If they actually were afraid of facing the consequences of their actions, most of them probably wouldn't act like that. And it doesn't matter if they go home and say the N words constantly and whatever. If
they want to do that, I don't care what they do at home. As long as they don't bring it onto the street.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So this is what I'm saying. But really, what it needs to be is that they're actually they feel like they're above the law, right? And if they didn't feel like that, then they wouldn't behave in the way that they do. So really, we need a government that's actually going to not try and uphold the notion of the police above all logic and reason, because really what they're doing is taking the attitude that like the police are the glue that holds society together, or at least stops it from crumbling apart. And if we undermine the power and the credibility of the police in any way, i.e. admit that police brutality is as bad as it actually is and actually punish these guys for the murders that they commit, then society will completely fall apart. But in reality, what's happening is they're refusing to punish these guys, and because of that, society is falling apart.
Exactly, yeah. And that's the thing. If you don't have a government that at this point is capable of enacting those changes and is capable of accountability, then you can't have faith in. You can't rely on it. You can't just hope it's going to do something.
That's the problem with the American system, is that even if if for example we have a hypothetical good president, who actually does want good change and wants to implement these things that we're talking about, he's then blocked by the American governmental system, with the House and the parties and all that stuff. It's too political. It's all based on politics within politics.
Exactly.
It's all logistical bullshit that just stops anything from happening.
Right. It leads you to a stalemate in a lot of ways, and then the people are just left. Hey, anything going on, guys? Or is anything going to change? Right.
No,
that's the thing.
Yeah. So that's it's the system that needs to be rectified, in my opinion.
And we have no obligation to it. I think our history and our Constitution is pretty clear. We have no obligation to a government like that. We have no obligation to a police force that acts in that way. And we have every right to create an alternative. And we have every right to defend ourselves from this corrupted force that not only seeks to do us harm, but we have loads and loads and tons of evidence to prove that it does seek to do us harm. Even when we're exercising the most basic right that is in this country, to peacefully assemble, freedom of association and speech and all of that shit. Like if the cops come down on you just for exercising those rights, or if they have provocateurs within their ranks trying to fuck up the whole thing politically, just like the guy smashing windows and shit, and it's a system beyond. It cannot be reformed. Like that system can't be reformed. Like they can send in fucking agents and shit to undermine the whole thing. I mean, like that, like as if they're above the law, as if they're adjacent to the law and the Constitution itself. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, like when you talk about them trying to stop you expressing your rights to freedom of speech and stuff, what they are actually for is to ensure that you are allowed those rights. That's their job, is to make sure that you're not stopped from having your freedom of speech. It's not the other way around. It's not that they're there to try and stop you having too much freedom of speech. It's they're actually there, and it's their job. That's the serve part of protect and serve, is that they're there to help you have your freedom of speech. And it just seems to go the opposite way.
Yeah, I mean, they may have the facade of that, but again, we have evidence that people within their ranks are going out and acting as provocateurs, acting as agents of, what we talked about earlier, the Christian nationalist right. The police, members, a lot of members of the police force are a part of it, whether they really understand that or not, or that they're acting in the favor of that. But what it is an insurgency. It is a fascist insurgency, the Christian nationalist evangelical insurgency. The police are part of it. It's all a part of it. And it's like we can't reform it because it's so embedded now.
It's like the police is like a religion in itself almost. And it's the same with the army. But one thing also that I read was that the guy that killed George Floyd was he's like a member of the KKK, or at least he's like
I'm not sure. I didn't see that. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, but I'm not sure about 12 that.
12 outstanding police brutality cases against him. Yeah.
Well, so more. I mean, there was a cop that like shoved this girl like onto the ground in New York, and they looked into him, and he had like 71 files of police brutality on this guy. This one cop.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, no, they're fucked. Like, I don't really. I mean, it's hard to say what is going to change it. We need both something from within the system and something outside of it. We need everything all at once. And consequences.
I think that's I think that's the what should be the easiest part of it. Really is it's exactly the same thing as the thing that'll fix the economy is if huge multinational corporations gets taxed properly, or at all, because most of the time they're not getting taxed at all. And it seems like such an easy thing to do, but because the people who make the laws are the people who don't want that law to go through, because they benefit from it, then
and who's protecting them?
Happen. Yeah, exactly. So then, and it's the same with making sure the police get punished. The people who benefit the most from them not getting punished are the people that are making the laws and the people that would be punishing them. So it's just one of these it's not a vicious cycle. It's like the opposite of that almost. It's like a dead stop. Because the two parts of that wheel just are happy where they are.
Right. And the solution to it is something nobody wants to talk about. No one wants to accept what the solution is going to be, because if you accept what it is and what it's really going to take, because history has already shown us that everywhere, not just in America, all over the world, that it's going to take I don't know how else to say it. Like, you have to go to war. Like, these people have to be stopped, like physically stopped, and either put in prison or put in the ground. Like, it's going to have to be one or the other. Like, I would love to see a president say, like, you know what, we're going to imprison the entire police force of America. We're going to imprison the CIA. We're going to put every single one of them, past and present, in prison for the rest of their lives. Fuck them. We're going to clean house. Fuck every last one of them. Fuck their families. Fuck what you think. We have to cleanse the wicked. That's what I want, because that's the only thing. That's the only thing that's going to fucking do anything. Get fucking rid of every last one of them and completely rehaul the system and put in new people. I mean, you could even keep the apparatus. The apparatus is there. The tools are there to make it, to mold it into something that is actually helpful to the people. But until we
don't think that individuals can be reformed, like if they're not in a toxic system which encourages or at least nurtures that sort of horrible behavior?
Well, how do you? Well, that's the toxic. The toxic system is. I mean, what is the system? It's people. There's nothing outside of.
But then the system, the toxic part of the system is the impunity, and if from above and out with their organization they were getting punished for their behavior, then it would basically, presumably, like naturally just go down the right avenue, because they would be afraid to behave the way that they have been.
Well, I mean, if If that ever happens, if they ever pass the law to make that happen, then I will just thank God. I will clasp my hands
It's not even
together.
a case of passing a law. It's just just the law has to be enforced. That's all.
Well, the way the law is in America, there actually is a law about that gives them immunity. That law already exists, and it's in our laws that they have immunity to certain things, certain violent acts. Just all they have to say is I felt threatened or this and that, and then they, that's a law. That's not like them just convincing someone. Like it's in the fucking books. Like they can just say that and get away with just about anything.
I felt afraid for my life, and then it's just like an instant box ticked. Okay, you can basically do. Yeah, it's so,
legislation has to be passed. Like Bernie and a lot of different people are trying to get rid of this law. It's called something immunity. So something with the word immunity in it.
Okay, right.
But it's real shit. And they're trying to get rid of it. Maybe they will. Oh, wouldn't that be great? And then we'll see how it goes from there.
So that could actually be a defined goal for what's happening at the moment.
I think it is. It's definitely getting there. There's a lot of. It's tough, because there's a lot of political powers at play here that want to co-opt this movement for their own sort of ends. The Democratic Party, for one.
They want it to be that. This wouldn't happen under a Democratic government. It's like, well,
right, and they don't want to listen to Bernie. They don't, even though Bernie has the right ideas, they don't want to listen to him because he's a socialist. That's another thing. I mean, if you got a bunch of liberal capitalists trying to lead, and I don't give a fuck what color their skin is, if they're fucking, if they're not fighting to build socialism, then they are the enemy of this movement, and I will say that point blank with 100% certainty, because capitalism does not have, it will never create the conditions necessary to stop this shit. All right, like capitalism has to end in history. It's part that it played in history must come to an end, and that's okay. That shouldn't have to be a traumatic thing. I think that can be a very easy transition. But that's a whole nother thing. Like, but again, that's the problem. It's like, well, they don't have the solutions. Like liberal capitalists do not have the solutions to this. They'll say, march for your rights in the street, support legislation here and there. Hopefully it'll come up. I don't know. Like, hopefully something will happen. We can't talk about it. We can't talk about the system itself. We can't talk about changing the system.
They don't have a job, right?
Right, because then their bottom line's gone. And again, and you see black folks doing this, like leading their people off a fucking cliff. Like, I guess me as a white man shouldn't be saying shit like that, but like that's what's happening. Like, Fred Hampton said it best himself. You don't fight capitalism with black capitalism. You fight capitalism with socialism. Period. That in turn fights racism. It fights the entire system that props up the racist hegemony everywhere. Like, you can't allow for a system that where people can capitalize on their racism. Like, it's a big fucking mess.
Yeah. Have you? You're from Greenville, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So has there been protests in Greenville?
Oh yeah. We're facing some of the same problems, like the Black Lives Matter people in Greenville. They were like fucking talking with the cops, getting the sheriff out there, just kissing ass, man. Like, just being pussies. Like, there were people out there, black, white, brown, all of us were fucking out there, young and old, like, ready to really give it to them, peacefully, unless, the cops wanted to come down brutally, which they did. I got thrown on the hood of a car, They didn't arrest me. They searched me, didn't arrest me.
What led up to that happening? Tell me the story.
Well, we were on a street. We were about to turn left on the street. Part of the protest had broken up. It had basically split up. The leadership didn't want people to go down this certain street, but there were people like, nah, fuck it, because they wanted to challenge the cops each time. The cops tried to block the road. The people would get there and then try to get them to move and just do that each time. Move, let us pass, let us pass. The leadership didn't, they were trying to keep the peace and all that shit, keep the parameters going and stuff. Again, because they're liberals. They can't go beyond, like, it's like, well, if we're going to protest, but the police are going to know about it, and they're going to know everywhere we're going, and we're all gonna hug and kiss at the end.
It's pretty hard. Like when you're like an actual lead, a figurehead for an organization, there's no escape at that point. When
right.
shit, yeah.
Yeah. There is no escape. They painted themselves into a corner.
Yeah.
Just by the nature of the organization itself, because it is not an organization, and it's not an anti-capitalist organization, so therefore it will never go outside of what the police allow, what the system allows. So all it does is, protest a little bit, hold signs, chants, make speeches, and then hopes something changes. Just hopes that something gets better. Instead of forcing that change, through action. So people were, in their own way, and it was still peaceful. I mean, no one was getting hurt, but they were in the cops' faces. They were saying, "Get the fuck out of the way," And then that was working out for a while, and then like some kids like ran to this gas station. Someone were running out with like bottles of water and Gatorade, like whatever. Kids are gonna fucking act wild like during shit like that. Like that wasn't even nearly as bad as anything else. But the cops see this shit, they flip out. They just run all up in there. We're on the sidewalk trying to get past all that from where it broke off. They pull up right in front of us, lumped us in with what was going on, put us on the hood of the car and shit. But once they didn't find anything or have any proof that we did anything, they let us go. But they were fucking assholes the whole time, threatening us, cussing us out, all kinds of shit. But yeah, that's how it went in Greenville. I mean, Greenville's a small town. In Columbia's like an hour and a half away. That's the capital of South Carolina, the capital city. They threw bricks at cops, threw rocks. They destroyed 6 or 7 cop cars, lit 3 of them on fire. They were rowdy out there. Charleston is the other big city in South Carolina. They were pretty rowdy. They have bigger populations than we do up in Greenville. Greenville's like the tip. Greenville's like the top. It's next to the mountains. Yeah.
Okay.
But there have been good protests here, pretty large. I mean, bigger than I've ever seen in this area, and that means something. That means there's a little bit of change, not in the system, of course, but in the people's hearts. That's changing. There's more people coming up that get it and are ready to at least start, fighting for something. Shit I haven't ever seen.
That's always, ultimately what we need is politicians and police to be afraid of us, right? That's the only way that they'll be motivated to do anything, because they're too
absolutely. And if you don't start talking about putting all their asses in fucking jail, if you don't start talking about lining them up and putting bullets in the back of their fucking skulls for being the murderous scum that they are, if you don't start saying we're willing to go all the way, like, because what the fuck is this? We're in a pandemic, global fucking economic collapse, Great Depression era fucking shit, and cops are our schools budgets are getting cut, all public funding is getting cut, but the cops are getting more money and more weapons and more everything just to bash our fucking heads in when we get sick of it. We have nothing left to fucking live for. We are losing more and more and more each day. And if you have a populace that is being brutalized with less and less to live for, less to give a fuck about, they're going to come after you, and rightfully so. And we should. We shouldn't be afraid to tell them, like, if this keeps up, like, we're going to shoot back. Like, we're gonna shoot the fuck back. We're gonna attack if this is how it's gonna stay. So you better do something, you know. And if they don't listen, then that's how it's gonna be. And and it's not right. You know, nobody wants to go there. Nobody wants it to be that way. We want a peaceful, loving world where everybody's together and everything is just great. You know, but that's not what we live in. And we're not going to be able to build that world without removing the roadblocks in the way, on the way to building that world. And that's just how I feel. We got to get mean. We got to tell them, that your days are fucking numbered. That's just what I'm saying. You don't got to listen to me. That's just my opinion.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, your song Tank Reaper, right? That's you said to me before, that's a particularly political one. So what's it about?
Yeah. Well, it's mostly about like the American empire, essentially imperialism, colonialism. That America thinks that it can, step its jackboots on the throats of Africans, Asians, people in the Middle East, everyone, Muslims, and uphold this American centric global hegemony by armed coercion is what it is, and that's essentially immoral. And the thing about it is, like, they justify it here. They say, well, America's the greatest country on earth. We're an exceptional people, and stuff like that. And they make you make you think that your life is roses, when really it's venom. We aren't spreading roses throughout the earth. We're not frolicking through the fucking prairies. We're not going through Syria planting roses. We're fucking instilling venom, in the veins of the earth. We're poisoning the earth. That's what we're doing with our empire. And our everything has to do with that. Our politicians, our cops. It's all part of the same fucking hole, the same rotten core that's to be dug out. But that's essentially what Tank Reaper is about,
Yeah.
It's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah.
Grim Reaper.
When you say there's that is such an American thing that like everyone out with America always say, it's the best country in the world, best country in the world,
Right.
And when you say like what's so great about it, there's never an answer to that question.
Cheeseburgers, cowboy hats. Did I mention McDonald's?
Yeah.
Fucking Burger King.
But it's like it seems like Donald Trump really took that tactic of just like, okay, you've got this slogan or this thing that you just say it over and over again until other people start repeating it as well. And then it, essentially becomes true because it's what everyone believes.
Basic propaganda. Propaganda 101.
But it's just, it's like, it doesn't matter. You don't need, as long as like, you can either make a statement like America is the best country in the world and then follow up with lots of reasons why America's the best country, or you can just go, America's the best country in the world, America's the best country in the world, and just say it over and over and over again and refuse to give any answers until people just give in and just go, I guess it must be if everyone's saying it all the time.
Well, the only reason they can apply that rhetoric, not just, in America, but all over the world because of empire, because they have military bases in every fucking country.
Yeah.
Because, they are holding you at gunpoint saying, America's the greatest country. Say it. Fucking say it.
But that whole thing when, I don't know if they still do that now, but when you make kids at school pledge allegiance to the flag and that, like that's.
Oh yeah, I went. Oh yeah, that was every single day.
That's crazy.
At school every morning. hand over your heart. Oh, I
Yeah.
still remember it. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I fucked up. One nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You missed the best part.
I missed the best part, man.
Yeah. But I mean,
No, that was every single day.
The notion of doing that to children is such obvious indoctrination that it would just never ever be allowed. You know?
It's Nazi shit.
Yeah.
Fucking, yeah.
Well, it's like indoctrination even before, like Nazis were ever a thing. Like doing something like that is so archaic. Like this is a sort of ritual every day of I mean, it's religious more than anything else. It's like taking communion, but to your government.
Right. I mean, I've seen videos of kids like when protests were going on like a couple years ago, like after the Mike Brown shooting, all that. Like that was very similar to now. This is a little more widespread. But there was lots of videos of kids like refusing to do the pledge, standing up because they see something wrong. And there was other little like redneck kids fucking attacking them for it. That's the thing. The system has a way, like the indoctrinated, like those that break out of it will be attacked by those that haven't. That's sort of how it keeps itself going. And that's the thing.
Well, it's a very basic like primate thing of like the outsider, and like they need to be ostracized and pushed away. So that's like children aren't properly indoctrinated yet, but they still have that like that's you're not playing along, you're not playing the game as it's been laid out for us to everyone gets a lot, like we all play this game and then everything's fine and we all move ahead. As long as you play along with the game, everything will be okay. And if someone refuses to play along with the game, then it's like you're fucking up the game, and you need to be punished, or we can't be seen to stand for this.
Right. Regardless of the context, it's just
exactly.
Yeah, that is exactly how it is. I don't know if they still do the pledge. I'm sure they still do. I haven't been in school for a long time.
Yeah.
But as far as I can tell, they do. From what I've seen. Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah. So, what's to come in the next few days, do you reckon?
Well, here it's hard to say. I mean, I think the leadership, like Black Lives Matter here, is sort of maybe they're infighting or they're planning something, but we're not super sure what. But there have been independent protests around here. Independent protests around here that have been peaceful and have been big and good and totally cool. There has really the violence the last few days has only been caused by the police hitting people, spraying people, shooting them with tear gas. People have been mostly peaceful, since Sunday. But it might depending on what happens, man, like it might revamp, this weekend or what, I don't know. We just don't know. We're flying by the seat of our pants on this one. I think people want to see like legislation or something passed, because if something like drastic isn't done, I don't see this ending really. They'll have it'll just be the next time something like this happens. It's like, when is it gonna fucking stop happening? And I don't know. They got to do something, because they give us more justification for building that, what I was talking about, that rival system against them. I mean, we've been talking about it. I mean, it's in talks. Like, it's going to happen. Like, we don't know when, what forms it'll take, but I think that I think that the system is going to fail. there won't be any worthwhile reforms. There won't be any worthwhile change whatsoever. And we're just going to be forced more and more to create our own separate thing, our own separate mutual aid, our own separate police force, hell, our own separate fucking military, if they want to bring it to that, you know? Like, nobody wants that shit. Nobody wants a civil war or anything like that. But if the people are forced, then the people are going to fucking do it. Like, we're like not going to be under the yoke of this fucking, you know, this police state. Like, we'll do something about it. A lot of fucking people will do something about it. And I just don't want it to have to come to what it might come to, honestly. So we'll see. You know?
Awesome, man. Thank you very much for chatting to me.
Right. Not a problem anytime.
Yeah, man. All right. I'll talk to you later. Stay safe.
You too.
Cheers, bro. Bye.
Later.